Very good morning, good afternoon, Carolyn, Adair. Welcome. Good to see you both. Good morning, Ryan. Got the ECB press conference going on, so just seeing how the euro reacting. All right, folks, let's get going. As we come into the session, we've had a fresh round of PMIs over the globe, and it just sort of highlights the fragmentation. Australia, PMI is pretty strong. That does support Governor Bullock's more hawkish outlook, and that is supporting the Australian dollar alongside the risk tone today. Aussie dollar, strongest currency of the session. Looking at the rest of the PMIs, mixed bag for Europe and the UK, seeing services come in below markets minimum expectations. That is a disappointment, and that's also helping to weigh on the pound at the moment. ECB had their interest rate decision, kept interest rates on hold exactly as expected. We have also had more jobless data out of the US. Remember, we're in the blackout period for the Fed now. Next Friday will be the non-farm payroll. Once again, another strong jobs report. So that does nothing to bring forward any interest rate cuts. And you can see that short-term interest rate markets expecting the Fed to keep interest rates unchanged, 96% chance of an unchanged decision.
The downside here in bonds now extending losses to the best part of a point, down 97 ticks.
And that's despite US
Euro is
President.
actually relatively steady in recent trade.
That's despite US President Trump calling Powell
Powell
too late, Powell.
Good place. Again, ECB president just continue to downplay the likelihood of an imminent rate cut by the ECB.
Right. So what's also interesting is Powell is going to the White House, to the Federal Reserve later this afternoon. So I don't think he's scheduled to meet Jerome Powell.
The guide also notes
that
that
could be
projections point to inflation is stabilizing at target in the medium term, adding that wages are heading in the right direction.
It would be a big surprise if
He also notes that
I'm just going to turn the squawk off for now. It'd be a big surprise if Trump didn't have something to say about Powell at the Fed when he goes there later. So just keep that alert as a risk. I'm not sure what time it is, but it is due happen later on today. I think later on US time. Now, equity markets at the moment are rallying sharply higher on yesterday's news that the EU and the US struck some kind of trade deal with tariffs at 15%. Now that hasn't been confirmed yet. And although sentiment is being lifted by the US-Japanese trade deal, the EU-US trade deal, there is also a bit of confusion about whether these deals are on or they're not on, what exactly the nature of the US-Japan deal is. And there's quite a few different sort of, outlooks. A number of US officials have called the US-EU deal a speculation, and they're waiting to hear from Trump. So just to be aware, although sentiment is positive, and look at the way volatility is dropping sharply lower, and looking at the S&P 500, where are we? You look at this time price opportunity, and what we're seeing is this key level here, this 6360, break down below there. You expect sellers to accelerate, break above the 6370, then we expect buyers to keep moving. Now, if you look at it, you can see that value area highs, point of controls have been migrating higher. It's just showing a bullish option, okay? So markets are bullish, and if we got a drop down to that 6335, that S1, yesterday's point of control on this composite profile, expect buyers. So just to be aware of that, we're at the bottom of the value area low now, so it wouldn't be surprised to see price pushing up, maybe up to those highs. And you can see market is, as it currently stands, is in balance, right? That's the value area high, that's the value area low, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, question mark. We're in balance. To get out of balance and to be trending, we need to be up above and on our way that way, down below, retest and on our way that way. So that's what we're looking for. Either a move back to that value area high, or confirmation lower and then looking for a move lower with ultimately dip buying probably around that S1 or maybe that pivot area. That's what we're looking at later on in the session. Looking at earnings, we had Alphabet Tesla earnings out overnight. Tesla is down about 6% in pre-market. We knew it was going to be a tough one for Tesla. There's a lot of headwinds, competition from electric vehicles, and a slowdown in some of his manufacturing speed, and he's been taken up with DOGE efficiency as he worked for the US government. It's all just sort of distracted Musk a little bit from his company, and he warned of rough times ahead. So the kind of as expected tough earnings call. Alphabet, Google was a bit better, and earnings are seeing a boost from artificial intelligence changes, and that's boosting the bottom line. And so Alphabet, Google, there was a bit of up and down with it pre-market, but it's sort of steadying at the moment, and analysts are generally happy about the earnings report from Google. Intel coming out tomorrow, American Airlines, sorry, not tomorrow, after the close today, and American Airlines looking at Intel after the close could give another little bit of to sentiment, depending on how that is. Jobless data, you can see here, initial jobless claims falling again. So another consecutive drop in US labor data, very good. Now, gold prices and silver prices are just dropping a little bit. If you look at gold, you can see the drops are quite marked. Now, part of the thing that gold needed was hedging on macro trade risk and global inflation fears from tariffs. So if the EU-US deal is going to be at 50% tariffs, that's less punitive than the 30% tariffs expected. And that's why gold is seeing some selling. So as currently stands, you'd expect gold to find sellers. Notice we're just moving into this trend line of support here. But that for me has just meant, okay, I'm happy to close my silver longs, but potentially wait for a pullback. Okay, so I'm happy to close my silver longs just because you don't quite know how much further it's going to go down. I can always re-enter if I want, but I've just closed them out, for a very decent profit, building in positions the whole way up there as I've been outlining here. So that's closed. Still looking to get back in, but on a pullback. Okay, little drop, maybe a hammer reversal bar, something decent from this level, anything down to that 38, 37 region. Similarly with copper prices, I've just taken profit up at those highs. You can see, yes, they couldn't quite get over those highs, so entered in on the break of this pennant pattern. Now it is early. I would consider getting in again if we see something decent in terms of price action. However, just taking profit on both those positions, just wanting to be flat as we come into the final stages of this August the 1st tariff deadline. One stock that is interesting, Apple, got their earnings out next Thursday. Just notice this strong overhead resistance we're coming into. Now, if you look at Apple's share price over the last sort of 25 years, from this kind of time up to the end of August, early September, see it's got a very strong 72% winning trade percentage, average return of 6.45%. So it's a very strong seasonal time for Apple. Got earnings coming up on the 27th of August. Sorry, I think, let me have a look. I make my note here. 29th of July rather, and that is on the Thursday next week after the Fed. And just notice there's a little dip that tends to be seen. So after earnings, if there's a little dip, that could be a potential good buying opportunity into the end of August, early September. So I'm going to try and keep an eye on that because structurally I like it. Look here, there's the average return of 5%. So if you look at a 5% move just from current prices, where would that be? Right, so that would be here to the downside, right, and there to the upside. So looking at it, if we can get above this trend line here, it's a kind of bigger wedge, kind of, when price does like this, it's higher lows, up, higher lows, higher lows, just higher lows, higher lows. It's sort of almost like a coiling action trying to break out. So what I'm looking for is, do we get a breakout, maybe a pullback and up? That could be good on earnings report, or looking for things like flag patterns, pennants on the intraday charts, and stops can just run underneath that bottom trend line potentially. And if you look at the maximum drop, see that the maximum drop is 9%, 8%, 6.69%. Now that 9% drop was a fall. That 6% drop was a fall overall. That 6% drop was a fall. That 6.73% was a fall. So the largest fall that saw a gain was here, 8.40%. So that's the maximum stop where the end seasonal pattern was a gain. So that would be somewhere like here. So it's quite a fall. I don't think I'd want to have a stop that big on it, but it's worth looking at as we come into earnings. So just keeping an eye on Apple. That's obviously Fed meeting next Wednesday as well. And we're in the Fed's blackout period as it stands. ECB decision on hold as expected. They got so much uncertainty at the moment. They were likely just to be expected to play for time. Talking about retaliation from EU's President Lagarde, optional, not definite. Growth in line, if not better than the baseline. Confident the inflation shock is behind. So that's sort of chat that can weigh on the euro with a bit of two-way action here. Pause as expected for the next rate decision as well. Where is it? Let's have a look. Baseline from June's holding. There's nothing really massively to latch onto at the moment from the ECB. ECB says doesn't target FX rates but does monitor rates. There was some talk going into the meeting whether the ECB would be concerned about the strength of the euro. So that's one little aspect that's been touted. You can see this trend line, price trying to break above and hold over this level. So we'll see. Tricky kind of trading at the moment. You can see prices making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. What happens here is going to be important. So now let's go over to the E-mini. In terms of data coming up, there's not a lot going on. We've got the S&P Global Manufacturing PMIs. They're not massive market movers, not in the same way the ISM is, but worth looking at. That's coming up at 245, so not long after the open. So we've just got to factor that in. Market participants could be holding back until we get that. Looking at the daily chart, look at that. Strong buyers trapping all these sellers. So this is a strong buy area. Any retracements back down to the 60. Looking at the hourly chart, you can see that price is in a clearly bullish condition above developing value area and above the developed value area from the previous week. Looking on the 15-minute, you can see that price is rejecting that value area high. Market trying to find a balance up there. We saw an attempt at buying off those lows, which is probably easier seen here, but we've only managed to get as far as this value area high. So you can see here, buyers not trapped. So really, if we get underneath here, right, then we can look for a run down to that pivot point. Otherwise, what we're monitoring for is any sort of push back up above this level. Now, ideally with this, I want to see a move up above that 6360, that 6400, right? As it stands, looking at the delta, it's negative. So I'd say there's a slight negative bias with those sellers here trapping those buyers. And if you look, we've had a sudden influx of sellers up at these highs. So I think probably there is a bit of a preference for selling with all those sellers here. And that came in after the jobless data. Now, there wasn't anything massive here. Let me look here. It wasn't anything massive. Just check there wasn't anything on the squawk. No. Could just be a little bit of uncertainty about these tariffs and what's exactly happening. I could feel this could go either way today. And going into the open, I'd say sellers have got the upper hand with inventory negative from the Globex open. Yeah, that's the Globex open. See, we are negative inventory and we're negative sort of about 1,300 contracts. But this is a key area here, got that value area low. So we'll see where we go, we'll see how it develops. Yeah, okay. Now, so there's two things I'm going to look for. Move up to there, and then a fade. So move back up to this area, then fade lower. So I'll be back up to here and then fade lower. Or just checking we don't hit this value area low and fade off of that. So that's the two things I'm looking for. Otherwise, just going to be patient. There's not a whole lot jumping out of it. The only thing I hear is sellers trapping buyers up here. So looking from sellers at this region or that region. So what are we looking for as we go into the session? So what I'm looking for here is a pullback in line with this breakout. So I'm thinking, okay, this looks like it wants to break out. So what I want now is a pullback and then try to go long in line with that breakout. That's the place. We're breaking out of balance. It's like the market saying we want to trend further. The tricky thing is it's very hard when it's so above the second standard deviation, really stretched. But if you look here, you see buyers have trapped sellers here, and buyers trapped sellers there. So for me, that second standard deviation looks attractive. So maybe if we can pull back here around this gap area, look for sellers to get trapped and then to go long. That's my playbook for today. Anyone else doing anything different? What's folks' ideas out there?
Next on the calendar in the US, in about 10 minutes time, we are looking out for new home sale units. Expectations are for an increase to 650,000 from the prior 623,000.
So here we go. Some of those, so this is those breakout buys here. Now, do they get trapped? That's going to be crucial, right? So let's have a look. So we've got some sellers coming in, 140 sellers. Remember, we could go back into this area, so we've got to be cautious of. So sellers coming in here, 200 nearly, right? We're back under the second standard deviation. Push up above, I'm going to go long. Okay. If buyers can push up above that area, I'll go long. Otherwise, just going to wait. Some of those breakout buys are sort of trapped there. Here we go. Right, I'm going to go long there and go long. Now my sell is there. So in fact, I'll go the other way if I get stopped. So I've got some buyers, you see, trapping those sellers here. So I'm happy to go long, but if they themselves get trapped, then I go short because I'll be looking for a play back into that value area. That second standard deviation is cap prices again. So bulls have to get over that now, which is tricky for them. And a bit of sellers coming in here. Okay, yeah, nice Ryan. That's sensible. More sellers coming in here. Look like they want to try and take it out. I'm going to go short if these get trapped, but sellers have trapped buyers there. You'd favor the sellers to come back in here. Right, yeah, okay, I'm in short because, right, that I think could trigger some shorts. Let's have a look. To go back into that range, but let's see how far down we go, you see. See on the 5, buyers, it's a wee bit tricky because of this, see, can we get back down to there? So that's the, right. Let's have a look. So we've moved down there. I've got a sell in. Right, I'm just going to trail the buy underneath that standard deviation. So let's see if I get any further. I'm going to close that out because I think I've got reasonably what I could expect. And now, do we want to go long? So that's the question here. So we're back at that value area high. So if we see some sellers getting trapped here, we could potentially go long. So sellers have come in. Do we get some sellers trapped down here is the thing. So there, some buyers trapped some sellers. So this is not a bad area, potentially look for some. If we can get above here, I'll go long again. Yeah, above here, I'm going to go long. Right, I'm going to go long because this is the value area high, right? Where we've got that rejection area here. Right, so we pull back. This is, if it's going to hold, it should hold from here.
Update from Sky News Arabia, Israel's Hayom. It says IDF is preparing to expand its operation in Gaza due to Hamas problematic response. So IDF preparing to expand operations in Gaza due to Hamas problematic response.
Okay. Now we want to see here, do we get 15-minute buyers trapping those sellers? That's going to be crucial. Let's see. We've got that point of control is now here. So that's holding. And we're holding above the standard deviation.
And now approaching 1 minute to the top of the hour, looking out for new home sale unit.
Above this high, I'm going another long. Didn't get it. 15-minute. Right, we're holding this area for now. So we're trying to hold above this value area high. So that's bullish. So now let's just look what we get. Get above these sellers and going long again.
10 seconds.
Ideally above those ones. So have another long there.
That's 627,000. So beneath the expected there, that translates to a 0.6% increase.
So we've got a 15-minute break now.
Just going back to that housing data, does note that the new home supply 9.8 months worth at current pace versus May's 9.7 months. So just an uptick there.
Delta positive, got sellers trapped. So point of control holding. It's okay as it stands. Take one position off if we get up to that 6408. I've got this off of my other accounts, but faffing around, I just missed it by a tick exiting there. So let's just see if I can get out at a better price. Right, I'm just closing that out for around just slightly better than break even. It was this faff here hitting that second and selling off sharply. That's what's just made me a little bit nervous on that. Oh, right. I just need to reassess. It was a nice profitable trade on my other accounts, which is good. So that's all moving in the right direction. And you can see here that this is where we're looking for the buyers from. Just want to see something a little bit more convincing here. See if there's anything else that we could get. Still look at it. Right. Okay. Buyers trapping those sellers. Let's give it another go. This isn't unreasonable. We've got buyers trapping sellers. And there. Now we're moving again. That's good. That's better. Clear out these highs is what I want to see. I'm only going to give it one chance. So I'm just moving it to break even. I just want to see these highs get cleared out totally. And I want it to happen now. Delta's building. Look, it's pushing, 100 contracts long, another 100 contracts, 200 contracts long, 50 contracts long. Looks like there's some sellers on the limit there. Come on. I'll be out at break even if it comes back. I just want to see it take out these highs. We're up at that 5 minute, you see. I don't want to see that capping prices up there. Come on. Where are you, buyers? Are you in this, Ryan? 6406. Another 100 buyers. Second standard deviation capping prices for now. 5 minute. Just clear out these sellers and then we're off. Come on. Move. Lovely, Ryan. Was that with these buyers trapping these sellers here? Was that the move? Brilliant, Ryan. Well done. Exactly the right spot. Exactly the right reasons. Yeah, that's good work. We'll run through this as well afterwards because this is now what we got. We've got a 5 minute coming up. Likewise, point of control's now moved up there. We've had another 100 contracts coming in long up here. Right, that looks like it's going to reverse, doesn't it? Now I just got in with a cheeky short there, just in case we get a flyer from this. Now that is quite cheeky, but it's you can just see that faking out. Yeah, that is really sneaky. Right, point of call's now dropped down there. This is a very tricky little market. Yeah, so this is a 5 minute. See, just a rejection. We've had, haven't we? 1, 2, 3 attempts at there. Point of control holding, but if we get underneath there, then we could have a more serious drop on our hands. Right, so let's see where we go from here. All right, see underneath this area. So sellers are just getting a bit of control here. Right, I'm just going to trail my stop to the 405. Let's see what happens. We're now under the point of control. That's another lot of buyers potentially another lot of buyers getting trapped there. Sellers just trying to gain a bit of strength here, aren't they? Yeah, okay, there we go. Right, now, let's see, do we get a sharp run through? Because this is tricky. I'm finding it hard to analyze this quick enough today.
So we did mention it in commentary at the time, just seeing a bit of a continued pullback in the equity space. In terms of specifics, not really a fresh or specific fundamental behind it. Does appear to be a bit of a tech-led pullback. That's going to do see those initial marks upside and gains in Alphabet pair back, now posting upside at just around 8/10. Also do have continued significant downside in Tesla, lower by the best part of 8% this morning. So again, that pullback is just continuing. ES now only firmer by around 8/10. Pullback itself, though, is broadly speaking in recent trade being led by the Nasdaq, which is just dipping into marginal negative territory.
I think that's going to, just having a think, will I take that? I'm going to take that off there. Right, I'm just taking that off. Oh, right, let's unpick all this. Najam, yes, good man, well done. Okay,